All right, welcome back, everyone. We're diving back into current affairs for the UPSC exams. Today is February 17th, 2025, and this is part 2 of our deep dive.
It's incredible how much news just one day can bring, right?
It really is. A lot to unpack today, but I think it'll be great for those prepping for the UPSC exams. And, we might even touch on some familiar topics from previous deep dives, which is always good for revision. So let's jump right in.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, let's kick things off with the India-Egypt joint military exercise, Cyclone. It just wrapped up in Rajasthan, and I'm curious about its significance. What do you think?
Well, I think this exercise actually demonstrates a lot about India's international approach, especially when we consider Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. It's not just about military ties.
You mean because Chapter 7 deals with actions against threats to peace?
Exactly. It shows India's willingness to collaborate with other nations.
So it's a statement about India's commitment to global security, basically.
Precisely. And we can connect this to India's strategic partnerships. The India-Egypt Strategic Partnership, for example, was established in 2023. It strengthens economic and defense ties. Plus, a major focus is counterterrorism efforts.
Oh, right. It's fascinating how these exercises play a role in shaping those relationships.
Definitely.
It's like India's building a network of alliances and partnerships, both militarily and diplomatically, I guess you could say?
You could say that.
Okay, well, let's move on to something that could strengthen or weaken those ties, right? Corruption. The Corruption Perceptions Index for 2024 just came out. And, well, the news isn't great for India.
No, unfortunately not. India slipped to the 96th position. This is concerning because it indicates an increase in perceived corruption.
Right. And how does this impact India?
Well, for one, it raises concerns about attracting foreign investment. Maintaining a level playing field for businesses and effectively implementing policies becomes that much harder, especially those crucial for development and climate action.
This decline is concerning, no doubt, but, it's not just India. It seems like a global problem. Over 140 countries have either stagnated or seen their scores worsen since 2012.
Yeah, that's right. Corruption is it's deeply entrenched. It often involves complex networks and, vested interests. It's going to take a lot more than scripter laws.
I see. So tackling it requires a change in culture, really. A commitment to transparency and accountability.
Yeah, and that's the hard part. It's a long game.
It is a long game. Okay, well, this makes me think about a different kind of problem, the AGR dues controversy. The Supreme Court just dealt a blow to Vodafone Idea and Party Airtel. What's the latest there?
Oh, right. AGR stand for Adjusted Gross Revenue. It determines what telecom companies pay to the government. Essentially, the disagreement comes down to what should be included when calculating the fees.
All the way back in 2019, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the government, right?
Yeah, the court stated that all revenue should be considered, not just revenue directly from telecom services.
And this recent ruling just reaffirms that 2019 decision.
Essentially, yes. It does create more complications for telecom companies, though, especially those already dealing with debt.
Yeah, I bet. It makes you wonder about their financial stability going forward.
It does, and the overall investment climate, too. This could even impact India's digital ambitions, if we're being honest.
That's a good point. All right, let's shift gears completely. We've been talking a lot about India. A fire has been raging on Amsterdam Island. It's in the southern Indian Ocean. It's been going on for weeks now.
Amsterdam Island.
Yeah, I have to admit I wasn't familiar with it either.
It's a French territory, pretty remote. It's primarily known for a research station, actually. It's called Martin de Villiers. Scientists there do a lot of research on things like meteorology and seismology.
Interesting. It's a reminder that even the most remote places are vulnerable to climate change.
It is, and the effects are more than just these direct events, like this fire.
Right, more subtle long-term shifts. It makes you wonder about the ecosystems there.
It does. Amsterdam Island, for example, is home to the Amsterdam albatross. It's actually one of the rarest birds. And this fire, it's unclear how it will impact them.
That's a good point. It's already a fragile population. Okay, well, from a remote island to an urban river, let's bring our focus back to India, specifically to the Vishwamitri River in Vadodara.
Vadodara.
Yeah, they just finished a crocodile census there.
Interesting. What kind of crocodiles?
Mugger crocodiles. They prefer freshwater habitats.
Ah, so this census shows the growing need to manage interactions between humans and wildlife, right? Especially in our growing cities.
Exactly. And the Vishwamitri River itself has such a rich history, with settlements dating back centuries. Now it's navigating the challenges of urbanization, but it's also home to these crocodiles.
It's a microcosm of development and conservation in India, isn't it?
It really is, especially when you consider that mugger crocodiles are classified as vulnerable.
Right, by the IUCN.
Yes. So this census is a step towards understanding these dynamics, which is crucial for conservation. But, I think we need to pause here and let our listeners digest all of this. We've covered a lot. and there's more to come.
Definitely. Welcome back to our deep dive. We're continuing our look at today's current affairs, February 17th, 2025. This is part 2.
It's amazing how much we covered in just the first part. And this is exactly the kind of broad perspective you need for the UPSC exams, would you say?
Absolutely. Connecting the dots, seeing those links, it's essential. Now, where do you want to pick things up?
Let's dive into some of the economic developments. The India EFTA desk, that seems significant. Can you tell us more?
Right. The India EFTA desk, well, think of it as a one-stop shop. It's designed to attract businesses from Eastern nations. They're looking to invest in India.
So Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland, those are the EFTA nations, right?
That's right. And the desk is a way to streamline things to make it easier for them to explore opportunities, navigate the Indian market.
So the main goal is to attract foreign direct investment. Why FT specifically, though?
Well, they're economic powerhouses, and India is already FT's 5th largest trading partner.
Oh, that's right. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah. The goal is to attract something like USD 100 billion over the next 15 years.
Wow, that's ambitious. What sectors are they focusing on?
It's not just about the money, though. It needs to align with India's economic initiatives. Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Right, of course.
Manufacturing, technology, renewable energy, pharmaceuticals, all key areas for growth. And, well, areas where EFTA nations have a lot of expertise.
So the hope is that it'll create jobs, boost manufacturing, and help India in the global supply chain. Makes sense.
That's the idea.
Okay, now let's talk about something else, ensuring Indian products have a global presence. The new HS code for GI-tagged rice. Can you remind us what an HS code is?
Sure. Think of it as a product identifier. It's used in international trade. Every product has a unique 6-digit code. It helps countries track trade, figure out duties and apply regulations.
Okay, that makes sense. So by creating a separate category for GI tag rice, India is essentially fast-tracking these varieties.
Yeah, you could say that. This way, Indian exporters can keep exporting even during potential bans on other rice varieties.
Interesting. It protects their market share and boosts the profile of these unique Indian products. Clever.
Very clever. And it's the first nation globally to do this.
For our listeners, this shows how different topics are connected, right? Agriculture, international trade, intellectual property rights, it's all linked.
It is.
Let's move on to something a bit different now. A recent study on Asian elephant vocalizations, it has some surprising findings. What did they find?
It turns out we may have underestimated how complex elephant communication is. They use a much wider range of sounds than we thought.
Really? I always thought they mainly communicated through trumpeting.
That's just one sound. They use roars, rumbles, they even chirp.
Chirp? Like birds?
Yes, like birds. It seems they trumpet for a variety of reasons. To greet each other, to play, express excitement. They don't just trumpet because of human disturbance.
It's amazing how much we still don't know about animals. This reminds us that there's always more to learn.
Exactly, and that research is key for conservation.
Speaking of which, Asian elephants are a keystone species, right?
Yes, that means they play a crucial role in their habitat. They have a disproportionately large impact, you could say. Asian elephants are what we call ecosystem engineers. They shape the environment around them.
So other species benefit from them. How do they do that?
Well, their movements, for example, create clearings. That helps forests regenerate. They dig for water, which other animals can then use. Even their dung, it helps spread seeds.
They really do engineer to the ecosystem around them. It's amazing. But they are endangered, right?
Sadly, yes. They're on the IUCN Red List. Habitat loss and human-wildlife conflict are major threats.
So what's being done to protect them?
Well, in India, they're protected under the Wildlife Protection Act. And there's also Project Tiger and Elephant, which focuses on protecting both species and their habitats.
So they combined Project Tiger and Project Elephant.
Yes, they did. Plus, there's a network of elephant reserves across India in 14 states.
It sounds like a multi-pronged approach, combining legal protection, habitat conservation, and hopefully raising awareness. It's great to hear that these efforts are in place.
It is. Now, do you want to get back to those mugger crocodiles in Vadodara?
Yes, let's talk about that. I'm still fascinated by the idea of crocodiles thriving in an urban river. It seems like a contradiction.
It might seem that way, but it highlights a growing trend, really. As our cities expand, interactions between humans and wildlife are becoming more common.
We need to learn to coexist, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the Vishwamitri River shows that it's possible. Despite the city, it still supports a population of mugger crocodiles.
Before we talk about the census, tell me more about this river. It sounds like it has quite a history.
It does. The Vishwamitri River, it's old, very old. There's evidence of settlements dating back to 1000 BC. It was vital for the development of ancient cities in the region.
Wow, that's incredible. So much history there. And now crocodiles, too. It's a fascinating mix.
It is. It shows the complex relationship we have with nature. even in our cities.
Okay, let's get back to the mugger crocodiles themselves. What could you tell us about them?
Well, they're very adaptable. You can find them all over South Asia, India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Nepal, even parts of Iran. They prefer freshwater habitats, rivers, lakes, marshes. They're ambush hunters, very powerful jaws.
And are they endangered?
They're classified as vulnerable by the IUCN, and they're protected in India under the Wildlife Protection Act.
So this census is important then. It's a way to monitor their population.
Exactly, and it helps us identify potential threats, figure out how to manage the human-wildlife conflict.
It's a balancing act, for sure, living alongside these powerful creatures in a city. Well, I think this brings us back to a theme we've touched on throughout this deep dive, the interconnectedness of everything.
It's all connected. What happens in one place can have ripple effects elsewhere. For our listeners preparing for the UPSC exams, understanding these connections is crucial.
It's about thinking critically, looking at the bigger picture, and understanding the dynamics at play.
Right, seeing how it all fits together. We hope this deep dive has given everyone some food for thought. What do you think?
I think so too. And before we wrap up this part, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated. We'll be back soon with the final part of our February 17th deep dive.
Looking forward to it. Welcome back, everyone. It's time to wrap up our February 17th, 2025 deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, wouldn't you say?
We have, and it's amazing how these seemingly separate news stories actually connect, right? Like we're seeing a bigger picture emerge.
Exactly, and that's what's crucial for UPSC aspirants. Recognizing these connections, understanding the dynamics. It's not just about knowing the facts. You need to be able to analyze.
Right, it's about connecting the dots. So let's start with the India-Egypt Joint Military Exercise, Cyclone. We talked about its significance for international security, but how does it fit into the bigger picture?
Well, if you think about it, Cyclone, the India FTDS, the HS code for GI tagged rice, they all show how India's asserting itself globally, both militarily and economically.
So India's building relationships and showcasing its strengths.
Precisely. The military exercise shows a commitment to global security, while the economic initiatives aim to attract investment and promote Indian products. It's all connected.
But we also discussed India's slip in the Corruption Perceptions Index. Doesn't that contradict this progress?
Not necessarily. It highlights a reality, right? Success on the global stage, it means you have to address internal challenges too.
Because corruption can hinder growth, discourage investment, and undermine policies.
Exactly. So it's a balancing act, making strides internationally while also tackling those internal issues.
That makes sense. It reminds me of the fire on Amsterdam Island. A seemingly isolated event, but it connects to this broader conversation. How so?
Well, that fire, it reminds us about climate change. It shows how vulnerable even remote ecosystems are. And environmental issues, well, they impact everything from the economy to international relations.
It really highlights how interconnected we all are, doesn't it? What happens in one place can have a ripple effect across the globe. And for our listeners, understanding these relationships is crucial, especially if they're preparing for the UPSC exam.
Absolutely. Analyzing the implications of events, understanding the consequences, it's all about connecting the dots, seeing that bigger picture.
That's what we've aimed to do in this deep dive. We've explored a variety of topics, we've woven them together, shown how they relate. Hopefully our listeners have a better understanding of the forces shaping our world.
And how those forces connect to each other. It's about developing that critical thinking, that ability to synthesize information.
Exactly. And with that, I think we've come to the end of our February 17th, 2025 deep dive. Remember, staying informed is just the first step. The real challenge lies in analysis, in critical thinking. Keep exploring these topics, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.
That's the key. And don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated. We'll be back with more deep dives soon.
Until then, keep learning and keep exploring the world of current affairs.